Hello everyone. So we are here to learn basics of .NET framework. Why I am telling basics is currently we will only learn till OOPS concept, and there will be another session conducted that will be on dependency injection and all the higher concept database connectivity and all those things will be taken care separately. Okay, this should take the basics should take almost 15 days to 20 days, the 20 classes I'm talking. So it will be more than 1 month anyway. Okay, and we'll go slow so that we can understand each and every concept. Any doubts you guys have, right? Please do ask me, but not immediately because this session is getting recorded. So we would like that once I am finishing my topic, then you can raise your doubts. We never used to work like this, but because we are planning to keep this for future reference also, so that whoever wants to learn .NET basics in our company, they can go through the videos rather than okay. Yeah. So we'll be covering the following topics of .NET framework. Yes. So basically, first of all, overview. See, overview is basically few very basic questions. Everybody has in their mind. Why .NET? Right? Why not any other programming languages? Right? You can choose any. There are more than 50 programming languages that is actively used in current scenario. Why C#? And why .NET framework along with that? Then once we have that clarity in our mind, then we'll go with the architecture. What is different in .NET framework? And then again, very specifics in that is CTS, CLS, MSIL, class libraries, JIT, CLR, GAP, garbage collection. Okay, and then we have an IDE tool to manage, coding, like how we do coding, compiling, debugging. For that, we have .NET framework, like we have Visual Studio to take care of all this. Okay, so we'll start with overview. Transition. So basically, now you can look here. We will come back to that little later. So first thing is why .NET framework, right? To understand that, see, and my approach is little different than most of the other tutors, approach how we go about things. So my way of teaching is like learn each and everything from the grassroots, like to go to the very deep of understanding. For example, when we are talking about .NET, so we should also learn how coding languages evolved, how it works. Now, in this class, we don't have that much time to go through. Otherwise, in usual in our like batches, what we do is we go through the basics, how coding language works, also like programming languages works. So here, what we want to understand first is framework, right? When we talk about .NET framework, how it is different from any other programming languages. See, when we talk about programming languages, we have different kind of programming languages. One we call what? One is markup language, programming language, then scripting language, right? And apart from that, there are different ways of compilation also, right? Anybody is aware of like what are different kinds of compilation?
One is pre-compiled script. One
Okay.
is already pre-compiled. Then
Take examples.
execute the optimized code.
Yeah. What is the example of that?
Like Java. Java creates one executable file. We write high-level language.
Okay. That will come to later. We have that thing to discuss because Java and .NET has that thing in common.
Okay.
or we can say .NET has picked up that part from Java.
Okay.
But see, when we are talking about languages, right? So we were trying to differentiate there. See, there are certain languages that is pre-compiled, right? And the motto of that kind of language is that we want very fast execution. So we don't want to waste time in compiling at all. Like markup languages. You've heard of it, right? HTML, hypertext markup languages. So that kind of languages, we don't have any compilation involved because it is pre-compiled, it is ready to execute. It directly goes to machine to execute. So that's why you see composed tags. You don't see any conditional things. Now HTML5 has added a lot of new things, a lot of new capabilities, but still it is pre-compiled, so we don't have to run and see. That's why debugging is not possible at all. There are again different kind of HTML which doesn't allow wrong tags, but again that also doesn't follow the compilation. They can only check the syntax, opening and closing. So XHTML and all those things. So whoever has worked on front end, they should be knowing that right. So that is one kind of language. Second kind of language is scripting language, right? Scripting language basically is where we don't have the full-fledged, compiler and debugger, everything attached, like JavaScript, right? We try to include it in different packages, so it can work with variety of applications, where because it is mostly independent, and this kind of like compiler, what kind of compiler we use here? Not compiler, basically we use interpreters. So
nowadays as well as compiler we use.
yeah, so because we not go into that high level where we have TypeScripts and all those things in picture, where objects and all those things are there. But basically in the invention of JavaScript, it is interpreted. Why? Because, and that's why you see you do minifying of JavaScript. Because interpreted language, how they run it, one line at a time. Usually when you run compile time, it search for termination. Basically when you put semicolon, I don't know, there are a few people who is not from, again, so I see one half, most of them are aware of what JavaScript is, but few people they are not. So basically any coding language works in two ways. One is they have a termination. Basically when a particular statement or when a line of code is terminated and ready for comparison, that only that part of code. Whereas JavaScript, even though you have termination with semicolon, it doesn't look for that. It processes one line at a time. So when you write JavaScript in a normal, beautiful way, like how we write programming language, right? It takes more time because it counts there are 5 lines. But if you would have written the same code in single line, it will compile at once, or it will interpret at once, right? So it is much faster in that way. But compiled languages such as C#, C, C++, even if you give 20 line, white space in between, doesn't matter. After comparison, code with no space, code with spaces will have the same output code. Now, so whatever code we write, okay, it doesn't directly go and gets executed. There is certain process in that. After some time we'll come to that. But first we'll understand how, and most of us here works on web technology, right? In our office. So whatever we are doing, it is something related to web. So most of the project, like our project, is also on clouds, right? And most of the, like I don't remember, few projects are there, but those people don't come to office. Like they are working on Windows platform, but our 99% project is there on web platform. So first we understand how basically our web this thing works. Okay, so basically there are two ways. Like when we open a website, right? There are two kinds of things happens. Not on the client side. Client side is your system. When you type google.com, right? So what happens? So we need to understand that. So one is client side processing, one is server side processing. Okay. So first we'll understand client side processing because this is simple. Suppose we have a website which is built in HTML, right? And we have a web server. Now, what is web server? We might ask, right? Like, apart from all the front end guys, anybody else has any idea on web server?
Not sure.
Sir? Okay. See, basically, we need some program to, understand the request. When we type google.com, what happens with that, right? You type in browser, first of all. So browser is one program. Now, what it does is, it first, because google.com is just a name, but at least all of you know that much that computer doesn't understand what is google.com. So computer to computer communication happens with IP addresses, right? That much you guys might be knowing. That IP address is a unique identifier on connected systems. So connected system, you can say intranet. Now what is intranet? Again, see, intranet, then you have internet and
Internally connected network.
and WAN, wide area network. There are three major concepts that is popular. Now WAN and LAN, like intranet and wide area network, both are somewhat similar. See, for example, in our office, what you use your IP address, you would have say 192.168. See, this IP doesn't have any significance in real world. It is only valid till your office. People who is connecting from home, first they have to log. If you try 192, probably something else might open. Okay. Whereas if you connect to VPN, okay, and then you type your IP, then basically you'll be able to access your system. So what exactly happens is there is a range of IP address that your governing council of who takes care of worldwide IP address network, they tell this you can use for your local area network. This will not be allocated into any public IP. So what is public IP? What is private IP? Public IP is IPs which is like you can definitely go to that address. Like if you are on internet, you can reach out to that particular address. Okay. Whereas private IP is something, I'll tell you, it is something like your apartment. If you stay in an apartment, then your main address terminates at the location, right? You say ABC apartment. After that, you will not be allowed to enter inside until unless there is a gatekeeper's consent, right? So it is something same. Now inside you have door number like 102, 202, 302. But outside world is not concerned of 102. There is a building number, say 5221. Now this will not repeat in that particular area. Because in that area, if you have 25221, then your mail can never reach to you, right? Your any post, any of your letters or anything will not reach to you because there are two places with the same number. Whereas in each and every apartment you have a flat number 102. You understand? So your private IP is something like that. So you can think this way: 1 to 1000 people have allocated just to keep your flat numbers. Your house number will start from say 1000 plus. So this is something similar we implemented IP addresses. So 192.168, that particular series is kept for local IP addresses. Okay. So when you put this IP, you cannot reach it from the outside. Right? It is only valid to your local surrounding. Outside office, that IP address somebody else might be using. Okay. So now how, when you type google.com, we reach to, so there is something called DNS, domain name server. So what we do is, when we type google.com, it reverse checks. So when you buy a domain, so google.com is a domain name. When you buy it, basically with the registrar is the authority who authorized to sell the domain names, right? When you buy a domain name, you have to configure your DNS. Basically there you tell this domain name will go to which IP address. Understanding this one? Okay. So basically when you type google.com, your system checks with DNS, and then finds out, okay, google.com is nothing because it's just a name, but it will revert back a IP address where I have to reach. Now suppose we have reached to that system is the right hand side system. You can say that is server, right? We have reached there, but you are requesting for a website. How the system will get to know that you are requesting for a website? So now there is something called port. How many people are aware of port numbers? Again, obviously. So I think so all the front end guys will be aware of port numbers. Admin people will be aware of port numbers. Rest of it for you, basically to have any external interface, right? We accommodate, like we achieve this via using port. We call it port. So it is something you can say a virtual console. So basically that's why we call USB as a port as well. So USB is external device we are putting into the system. So there has to be a port to interface both the things. Similarly, and there is something called port numbers. So every port has a unique number provided. So usually when you type HTTP, okay, it lands to a port 80, that is pre-configured for HTTP. Similarly for HTTPS, port number is configured at 443. But sometimes, especially .NET guys, you must be knowing that after the URL localhost / then you have a number. That is also port number. So if you are managing your application, apart from standard port, you can still do it, but you have to mention the port number so that it will override the protocol's default port number. So HTTP protocol, so default port number is 80, whereas HTTPS is 443. But suppose your HTTPS is located at 4400. That is still possible, but you have to write your IP address or your address like name google.com or vsoftwareconsulting.com / your port number, and then your path will be there. Now you have reached to the port, but after that how we'll handle the data, right? Till now what we did, we made a request to server to receive some file. Basically over network we can communicate in terms of data, right? So we are requesting some data and we are waiting for response. But you will only get response when your request is understood or acknowledged or processed, right? So first thing is we identified how we will find the target system from where we have to get the response. So you have understood this part, right? When you type some address, it might be IP address or it might be some name like google.com or domain name. Then there is a reverse process. When you are typing IP address, then you are correctly addressing the computer. Whereas when you are typing the name, let it be localhost also. If you see in DNS config, there the entry will be there that if you type this IP, it should loop back to 127.0.0. Okay. So that is how it is configured. So any name you type, it has to be translated back to IP address. And when we reach to the system, we look for a specific port to communicate, right? Okay. So now you need to process your request. For that again you need another application. Like how you needed a application to send the request. That is your Chrome or Firefox or your Internet Explorer you use for opening a website. That is a client application. You need a server-side application to process your request. You will listen to the port and then take your request and then process your request. For that we have a web server, application which processes the your web request or your HTTP and HTTPS request is called web server. Okay. So now web server, there are different web servers. It's not like it's a single program. You have a definition of the program, right? But it can be anything. Like you have Nginx in Linux, you have Apache. CentOS is a OS.
Oh.
Okay. Like which and all is web server. You have IIS in Windows, right? Then you have Tomcat for Java. So there are a lot of other web servers also, but these are the most popular ones, which is being used commonly.
NGINX.
We call it Nginx, but you call it Nginx. Okay. So this you understood. So what your web server will do is, you will take the request. Depending upon your request, it will go to the particular file. Now, you have gone to the file, depending upon whether it is a normal file or a programming file, things will differ. So, first we understand, like, we have a HTML file, right? Now, HTML is a pre-compiled or pre-processed file. So, we don't have to do any processing. So, web server will understand it is ready to be served, take the content, send it back to client, and client will render the HTML. This is scenario 1 that you see where there is no processing. That is the below image, not the above one. Okay, that is client side processing. So there is no processing happening on the server side. Web server receives the request and takes the file, sends it back to a corresponding file, because HTML is not a single file. There are so many images attached to that. So it will go through that, all the relevant or required documents, it will send back to the client. So this is not the topic to discuss. So I'm just skipping those things. Now server side, because that is of our concern, right? See what happens when we need to do some processing on a server side. Like when we want to log into Gmail to access my mail. So when we log into Gmail, how we access our mail, not somebody else's mail, right? So in the client, because see, if it is only client server, it will reach to a file, send it back to me. In that case, it is common file, right? If you request, you will also get the same response. For example, vSoftware. You open vSoftware website, all of you open, everybody will see the same data. Whereas when we open your Gmail, you will say your email. When I open, I'll get. So it has to be a relevant data. So there needs. So the requirement would be now is to, based on the request, we do a processing and sends the personalized data only for that particular user who has requested it. So example, as I told, that is Gmail. But how we can achieve it, right? With the help of a server-side programming language. Okay. Now, like HTML, JavaScript. Now again, you don't interrupt saying that JavaScript server-side also. Yeah, we know, but that is very recent. So we'll talk about client-side programming languages. Like you have HTML, you have JavaScript, you had Flash, which is gone now. You had Silverlight, which is gone now. Okay, so there are a few more, like that is ActiveX, that is also gone long back. So currently, what we have is HTML and JavaScript actively running. There are few more new that has come with .NET, but we'll not discuss. That is not topic to discuss now. So we'll stick to HTML and JavaScript, which is currently running. There are more, but that is not being used in current scenario. So what we do for server side, again we do have programming language just like client side, like C# is there, C is there, Java is there, PHP is there, Python is there, Perl is there,
Node.js is also there.
Node.js, yes, I was waiting for that. Node.js, and then we do have more Go is there, but we'll stick to few names, and because we have to concentrate only on C#, because C# is one of the programming language that can work on server side. So we are done with client side programming language and server side programming. Now, skip this. Complete. So before getting into these details, what we'll do is first we understand programming language, need of the programming language, and why .NET framework, right? We started this topic and then we skip to all those things because we wanted to learn the context. Why we need a programming language first of all. Now, but I have told you we have bucket full of programming languages to choose. Then why C# and why .NET framework? Now, usually when we talk about any programming language, we directly take another name, like Java, right? PHP, all are programming languages. In this scenario, we have got two names, C# and .NET framework. Now, what is the difference? So first we'll understand there are few terms. Programming language, right? Then a platform, and then a framework. Now, these three you would have definitely heard. Programming language, definitely you would have heard. Platform. See, when we talk something like few programming language like Java, we say Java platform, right? But when we talk about C#, then we say .NET framework. Now, first we'll understand what is programming language. Then we'll understand what is platform, and then we will understand what is framework, right? Now, somebody can tell me what is a program?
Programming language.
Program.
Program is a chunk of code. Using that, we can analyze business or we can explore roles.
Anyone else?
Set of instructions
Yes.
pertaining on a particular task.
Yes. Anyone else? See, this set of instructions executed in a defined order to achieve a particular task. Okay. This is more generic explanation. Now, we also understand one more. See, when I learn in art class, I try to correlate things what we learn in a programming language scenario to a real life scenario. Right? Because, see, at the end of the day, what we do is we use these programming languages to solve our day-to-day problem. Right? We are in some class and you all are working in this company, so you know, right, what we are solving here. All the engineering problems what Albert is having, they are being practical, right? We are trying to ease their practical work with the help of coding. They are training with us, right? We are helping them do that better, right? It would have been more reasonable for them to do it. For example, they don't know where to do it, right? At the end, when they reach to a depth of 1,000 feet or 2,000 feet, they get into the water, right? So we access it so that we can get first. We have surveys to understand where you can get maximum payload, right? And then you start building, and then there is different assists there also, right? So basically, programming helps people to ease out their day-to-day work. Second thing is computer came later. English was in the first chapter. All the terms we hear is all in English. So why we call something with the same name, right? There has to be a relevance. Why we call programming programming? Now program or programming, right, is not a new word. It is not invented after computer technique. It was there, right? So we form other than a computer.
An alien broker generally has to be executed, or the valid identity has to be executed.
Yeah, that is kind of an example that I was talking about. Kind of different. It is not that easy, I understand. Because, when you use something very often,
If you have some event, we
yeah,
will arrange some.
correct. That is our program, right?
Some organized event.
Yes. So basically, when we talk about program, right, event is something different, program is little different. Program is, for example, how many of you used to watch some serial in TV? Which one? Give you one example.
I don't know.
What time? Did you watch it at any point? Yeah, exactly. See, when we call something program, where the the timing of that or sequence of that is already fixed. You understand? Program, in the sense, we have already chose first this will happen when you say, when you organize an event and you say there is a program. When you say there is a program, it means all the sequence of things are already pre-planned and it will happen exactly the same way. Right? What we call event, what is event? When you don't have exact knowledge of what will happen, you know. But when it will happen, what exactly you don't know. Right? That is an event. Okay. So, now you understand basically what program is. Programming language. Right? Now there are two terms involved in this. First one is program. So you understood program. So way of doing programming is called programming. Very simple. Now language. Now can somebody tell me in its definition of language?
Or way of communication.
Okay, good.
Medium.
Medium of communication is language, is correct. Now tell me how many different kind of languages are there? Not I'm talking about types of language. Not don't start with another language.
Well, it's language for science, language for writing.
Yeah. See, language is basically communication again, right? But language is basically of two types, right? First is your language is only spoken. There is no literature, right? Second type of language is called with literature. Can you tell me what language with? Language, they have like vocabulary as well as written. Like they speak also and they write also. Like Kannada is one, Sanskrit is one, Hindi, no, Sanskrit, no,
Yes.
no. What is the script used for Hindi and Sanskrit? Exactly. Now, Hindi and Devanagari is different. So, that is called Lipi. In Hindi, that is called Lipi. In English, it's a script, right? So, basically, script is Devanagari. Right? It's not either. So, Hindi and Sanskrit doesn't have that. They use Devanagari. There are a lot of languages they don't have. They only have way of communication, but not the script. So there are two kinds of languages you understood, right? One, only they communicate, but there is no written form to communicate. There is only verbal form to communicate. Second one is which has a verbal and written. That one is So we prefer, because because here, like in programming language, we prefer kind of a language which has scripters, like English doesn't have scripts again. Roman, right? English doesn't have scripts. They use Roman, like in a way like they modified it, but they don't have their own script as well. So, but what are the features of the language? Part of just having a script or not having a script. No. Features of the language is there is grammar, right? Grammar is what? Rules. Right? How a sentence is being formed. There is a rule. If you do it, that is wrong. So you need to follow the rule. There are words, right, which has certain meaning. Okay? And so again, grammar will not go into details like that because there will be, different way of forming that. But two things, right? One is words, right? You have, for language, two things are very important. One, words, right? And then you have rules, like how to erase the words, right? So, we have understood the basics at least that for a programming language we need to have, some words which has some meaning and a way of arranging to achieve your end goal, right? Now, next, what will come? This is a little extra from, so basically what are all languages do? So communication, right? So whatever you want, that can be, either written out or verbally communicated. So now we'll restrict it to non-verbal, that is written. Why? Because our requirement in coding is we need to write everything in order to process it further. So first thing is it should be able to, it should have a script. Second thing is rules. In rules also very important decision making capabilities, right? So you need to have a condition because decision making capability comes from your questioning or reasoning, and with the reasoning you should have a definitive output. This should not be 50-50, right? We are not giving supercomputers where you can have qubits. We are only working with normal computers. So here we should have the capability in the programming language to make a decision, right? So first should be sequential execution. Features of the programming language. First, sequential execution. Then there are keywords that now keywords like in normal language we call it. There should be words which have predefined meanings. There should be a rule which covers how things will work, how you can do, what you can do, and what should be the syntax, right? To write something. Decision making capabilities, sequential execution. Next, features. termination, correct? Termination will be there. Very basic. Termination is achieved by different ways, but yeah, it has to be there. Termination, then repeating. Because if you don't have these functionalities, this one is necessary. Most of you will not, most of you will not be able to achieve your goal through a programming language, because there are certain tasks which is repeated again and again by design or by purpose. Right? Sometimes it is needed, sometimes you want it to happen purposefully, and this is achieved in different ways. Right? So that will be done in second chapter, so we will not touch these things. So you understood, right, very basics of programming, like building blocks, sequential execution, again that has to be there. There is conditional operator. You should have a repeating feature. Then termination, stop. You can say starting also. We used to write start electronic communication, you understand. Who are writing code for the flow chart. We used to write code like that, start. There is a keyword itself, start. Okay. So now we will go to building blocks of document. So I didn't complete the differences between framework and platform. Now you understood programming language. Platform, right? Why we call Java platform? For that, again we have to go back, we have to understand quickly that what a platform is. See, platform is a, you can say, basically in a normal English term, right? Dancing is a platform, right? Again, a different context and what platform we talk about, right? So basically, why we call dancing as a platform, right? It gives a medium, to encourage certain things. That is only about dance, right? So you cannot go and perform. You are a very good singer, but you cannot go and sing there, right? Similarly, you can say you cannot take a bus there and stand there. So basically, platform, two things are very important. One is the medium. Second is entry and exit. Basically, when you say dance areas, you get lost in this. Not dances. Then you give them the platform and it goes to a higher level. The medium is you can say exposure. In trains, you can say when you go to railway station. The medium is your tracks, and you can go from one place to another place, provided it the route covers that. You cannot take a train to medium and after etc. Right? So that is very important. For example, Java. Right? Till now we were talking about programming language to just do some programming. But now we are in an age where it doesn't stick there. Right? You need to do programming on mobile, on desktop, on TV. Right? So it depends on, there are different kind of environments we have. Right? Web application, Windows application. Right? So, for example, now Java. You can do mobile application development of Java. You can do Windows application development. You can do web application development. Right? You can do few more things as well. But you can only use medium as Java. You cannot write C# code on Java platform. That is restricted by Java programming language. Understand? So platform has a lot of features. Right? It can take you to different places, provided you are riding on, you can go to different stations, but you have to ride on train and it should go to the track. Right? So that is the limitation of our platform. That's where .NET saw an opportunity and planned for a framework. Now, what is the difference between a platform and a framework? Basically, Java, right? Java had only one restriction framework, right? It comes from the word frame. Now, what frame does is, right, you have a photo frame, right? You go buy a photo frame, come home, put a picture. Whose picture you? No, don't laugh. I know whose picture you put, but in general, right? Any picture you can put, right? It is not restricting us to put a picture, provided the dimensions should match, right? So now, a framework kind of structure doesn't restrict you to what you want to use, provided you follow the rule of a framework. Understood? .NET framework supports almost 54 languages. Okay? So basically, unlike Java, it is not restricting you to only use C#. So C#, like .NET framework comes by default with C#, but it now doesn't restrict you to only use C# as a programming language. On top of it, the other advantage is whether you do C#, whether you use PHP, whether you use Python, like which all languages are supported. If you are writing the same code for same purpose, your output performance will always be the same. Irrespective whether, like for example, Python is comparatively slow, PHP is comparatively slower than C#. But when you use .NET framework to write PHP program, your program will not be slow. Okay, that we'll get to know why it happens with the help of other things like what I told initially, CRL CTS. So .NET framework, first of all, you understood, right? It provides a frame to accommodate any language if they support the rule of the framework. So if you have a programming language and you want to integrate with .NET framework, you can do it until unless you are not violating any of the rules which is set by .NET framework, right? If you are supporting that, you will be able to run your program in .NET framework. Understood? Let's go to the different blocks of .NET framework. Okay? Can someone read out? First one is .NET ADO.NET. ADO.NET is a part of .NET framework which deals with data. Okay? So basically, in the normal day-to-day life programming, we need to handle data, right? Now we'll come back to what data is, but before that, we'll first cover all the things. Second one is web forms, right? Now there are two parts of, there used to be two major parts of .NET framework. One was web form, second one was Win forms. Basically, web forms are nothing but your web applications. Win form is nothing but Windows application. Now Windows application is like any other program you see on your desktop. That is all Windows application, right? Now fourth is XML, right? What is the full form of XML? Extended markup language. Why we call this thing as extended markup language? Any idea?
Yeah, the tags are not predefined.
Correct. See, unlike HTML, where tags are defined, there was a need of a tag-based language. It's not a language basically. Now we are using more like a data structure, but in those days, because to communicate with server, they wanted some open tags where compilation is not needed, but tags are not predefined as well. So we came across XML, and definition of the tags are stored in the header if you want a definition to be there. Okay, that's why you see if you have worked with XML, on top there will be a URL also, where the definition will be present for those tags. Okay, then file. Again, if you are a programming language, then you need to process files, that that's N, or IU. You can also call IU. And any input output. The last one is hmm?
And so on and so on.
Okay, and so I don't know, I'm not able to read. Okay, so basically these are the different parts of .NET. So basically verticals, you can say different verticals of .NET. Right? Now comes class libraries. Again, class libraries are chunk of codes, right? Which is used, in conjunction. So for example, when you are making a bigger projects, right? You can have smaller code ready with you to get integrated with your project. Nowadays, class library is a huge thing. The days what this book was written, and I'll share this book to you, like to learn the basics. First 3 chapters you can go through. Okay. So class libraries are basically again, you can say single purpose or multi-purpose code, block of code that can get integrated directly with your code. Like, you can have predefined libraries with this. Okay. Rest of the things here will, cover in next slide. Next slide. Okay. So now we'll understand how .NET functions, right? Now we talked about what is .NET framework, right? Why do we need framework? Why it is better than other programming languages? Concept of framework. But see, now here we are supporting multiple languages, right? But you might have got a question, right? How .NET is doing it, or how Microsoft is doing it, right? When other people are not able to do it, right? Because see, something never changes, right? If a programming language, or a compiler can run only one programming language, then it is for everyone, right? That's why everybody was not able to do it. So what was Microsoft's plans to overcome that? So basically, it is very simple. Microsoft never, violated the basic rule that compiler can only compile a particular language. What they did is they broke it into 2 layers, right? One is your coding language. For example, C# or VB, or PHP or Python or any other language will have a corresponding compiler that you have to write to convert the code into IL code. Now what is IL? IL is called intermediate language. So basically, intermediate language consists of another layer of instructions, okay, that is called CLS. Basically there is common language specification. So there are so many data types, right? So there are corresponding data types for each and every data type which has a common language specification. So we'll get to know, like once we start the data types, right, we'll get to know what is IL code there. Basically what it does is, when you write code in C#, the corresponding compiler, you can see, right, there is separate compiler for each one. C# compiler will be there, VB compiler will be there, right? Basically the corresponding compilers converts the code into intermediate language first, right? And how they do it is because for every operations, there is a standard IL code given. So basically if you have a block of code, then you have to find out what is the equivalent IL code for this particular block of code. And you write the compiler to convert your code into that, right? So basically first stage, what they'll do is, so there are 2-stage compilation in .NET framework. First stage, the code gets converted into intermediate language, right? And then from intermediate language to, there is another compiler called just-in-time compiler, right? JIT. That converts the code into a executable code or a machine code. Understood? So there are few things that is already ready-made in the IL format, like your DLLs. because it's a pre-compiled. So that is already in IL format. That's why at the CLR time, like now I'll tell you what is CLR CTS, right? And so basically you understood IL, or anybody is having any doubt, because this is the important concept. Because to understand how this .NET is able to process multiple languages, you have to understand how IL compilation is happening, and then CLR is normal like how we do it in any other programming language, right? To take the code, compile it, and convert it to machine code.
It can compile only these three, right?
See, in IL level, right, there are other things like your libraries are there, comms are there. That is already ready-made at IL level, right? When you attach a library, DLL, it is already pre-compiled. So that means it's already in IL.
Okay.
So you can directly attach at the time of providing into just-in-time compiler.
Okay.
Okay?
And
So
this compiler only compile this code only, right?
yes,
Not
that's
other.
it. No. So basically, only it will compile IL code.
Mm.
So your what do you say? IL code is converted by corresponding. So every coding language will have their own compiler to convert from their code into IL. Whereas just-in-time compiler will compile the IL code into the machine code, executable code. Yeah. So and this whole block, the bottom block you can see, right? That is called CLR, Common Language Runtime, because IL is a common language, right? So every code is getting compiled into a common language, that is a intermediate language. IL is called intermediate language, right? Or MSIL, Microsoft Intermediate Language. Okay, so basically when you see DLL and all, it is already converted into IL. So it will not compile again until unless there is certain ways where we say DLL should be compilable, but otherwise when you create a DLL, then you cannot go inside DLL when you are debugging it.
Right? The compile code.
Yes. So there is a PDB file when you want to debug. So they will generate another debug file, right? Using that you can debug the DLL. Otherwise, once you have created a DLL, because it is an IL code, so you will not be able to navigate. Okay. So this whole process you guys have figured out. You have any. See, we have how many these things? We have keywords. CLR, Common Language Runtime. What is Common Language Runtime?
Converts IL code
To machine, right?
Yeah.
And it with the help of just-in-time compiler. Okay, because it runs common language, that is IL. That's why it is called Common Language Runtime. Okay. Then you have CTS, Common Type System. As I told, because we need to convert everything into a common language, you need to have a common type, right? That is another language. For that you have CTS, Common Type Systems, right? Then you have Common Language Specification, CLS. Again, it is the same thing, right? What specification you give for, as I told, right? You have to convert your coding language into IL. For that, you have the specifications, like, you know, what and all should be there. How you can convert your data types into .NET data types.
So main thing is each and everything is pre-compiled, right?
Which one?
Here .NET framework.
No, it's a two-stage comparison. It's not pre-compiled.
Yeah, that is fine. But when it's when I'm executing my executable code, so at that scenario it is
Yeah, it is
pre-compiled.
That is like true with any other coding language. When you have exe, that is pre-compiled.
Yeah.
When you run exe, it will never be compiled, right? But when you run a run button, then it depends, right? If you have done any changes to the code, then it will compile first and then run. But if you have, like last time, if you have compiled it and there is no changes done, then it will run the same code. It will not compile again. Oh yeah. No questions? Very strange. Is there any other slide? No, right? Okay. Go to the So now we have reached the end of first chapter where we need to understand what the topic is. Right? That is only about introduction. There is no concept, no much logic in that. But you have a better understanding on, why you are choosing this decision. Right? How it is different from any other program. Okay. What is it? Because if you have also topic, so you have to understand what topic is. No. You should also go and do some research on how fast it is compared to other languages like, since there are few similar languages like Java. Now C you cannot compare because C will be very fast. C will be very fast than any modern language. Now how you can find a difference here? Like, and C is a strict type. Basically, here you need to declare the data type. You cannot have a multiple variables like PHP or your JavaScript, your TypeScript. They are now made it like you have to put the data type. But yeah, strict typing is like to declare the data type upfront. Here also you can write some code like bar, just like your JavaScript and PHP and Python. They don't write bar, but this is do not write any data type also. But here you cannot create a undeclared bar. It means that even though Turtle is making it easy for write, don't write any data type. But the moment you put a variable, when you do assignment, Turtle gets to know what kind of data type you have put it. So it's still strict type. It is never been a, how we put open type, like, at the time of compilation they try to determine what kind of data type the variable is. In .NET you cannot do it. If you do it, it will fire an error.
So programming time is very large for this one, right? Because you need to write lots of data type, lots of enums. That is if other language provide that one, anonymous, that is good.
See, coding is something like, when you want a problem at the time of writing, or you want a problem at the time of executing. It is your choice. When strict type means execution will be very fast. Because a compiler will not take time to identify what kind of variable type you are. So you don't want to take a data for the first time. One time you are writing code, but you want to take a data for the entire, life cycle of the product where the code is running. That's why code is always PHP and Python is much slower, almost 1,000 times slower than C#. So that's why C# try to avoid, but it adds, benefit to you. Like there are a lot of basic libraries, there are a lot of pre-work things, right? That makes your life easier. So the coding is already done. So all those things where other language doesn't have that kind of processes. What .NET has. So you have advantages on this. But yeah, there is no, anonymous type. Yeah, allowed it in terms of but it is just for one second. For you, like, developer is very easy to write long data types. You use bar, but you have to do variable assignment. Otherwise, it will not allow. It will not allow, like, it will not really allow you to compile. Because here, at the time of writing, only it will give you the flag with the error, right? The syntax is not allowed. But there is intuition, so when you start writing,